You're welcome back to Morning Express. Now, here in the studio this morning, we'll be taking a look at the first headline story that we had read out earlier concerning the federal government's decision to reopen oil exploration in Ogoni land, and President Bola Tinubu's conferment of posthumous honors on the Ogoni Four, who lost their lives fighting for the rights of the Ogoni people. President Bola Tinubu met with the National Security Advisor Malam Noor Ribado yesterday in the Aso Villa, alongside the reinstated Governor of Rivers State, Sasiminalai Fubara, and of course Professor Dom Baridam. During the presentation of the report at the Presidential Villa in Abuja, Professor Baridam is the chairman, Ogoni Dialogue Committee. Well, Bito, what do you make of this entire situation? I mean, Ogoni land has been plagued by a lot of controversies in the last number of decades. We all can attest to the fact that during the administration of, Nigeria's former military head of state, talking about General Sani Abacha, there was quite a lot of trouble with the Ogoni people, and it led to the arrest, trial, and execution of some people who are considered till today heroes of Ogoni land, who were calling and, in terms of activism for the rights of the Ogoni people, calling for an end to the inhumane exploration that has been going on there and the environmental degradation that the oil exploration caused in Ogoni land. But decades down the line, we're seeing President Bola Tinubu finally giving the Ogoni people what is due, their fallen heroes.
Now, for me, I think it's a case of restorative justice.
Yeah.
I think that's the best phrase I would use to capture this. Because whenever we talk about the story of Ogoni land, it's almost impossible to separate Ogoni 4 from the Ogoni line, Ogoni 9 rather.
Yeah.
Famous writer and activist Ken Saro-Wiwa is one name you would always remember as one of the most prominent. Although the Ogoni 4, which were conferred with national honors yesterday at the Villa, were Ogoni chiefs, who long before now, never since the exploration of oil in the 1950s, had been clamoring for the necessary basic things. If you're having exploitative practices that is taking the golden egg this Niger Delta community is laying, there should be cleanup exercises to compensate for the years of degradation. People whose mainstay were largely fishing, farming before the advent of oil now have lost those farmlands. And whilst people come out to clamor for their due rights, I know Ken Saro-Wiwa famously pushed MASOP, the movement for the survival of Ogoni people. Now, this, I wouldn't consider it an entirely salvaging situation, whereas the Ogoni 9 were not mentioned yesterday. At least the 4 chiefs received honors, but this story would not be complete without Ken Saro-Wiwa in its own way. Because I remember in May 1994, that was when the whole trials and accusations were leveled against them, up until the execution in November 1995, when this whole Ogoni struggle was ongoing. So for me, I know some Ogoni people, at least they were represented by their chiefs at the Villa yesterday, will be looking at it. Is this a case of trying to reopen production and feeling the need to do something to appease those who are angry?
It certainly has a lot of shades. It has a lot of shades. On one hand, it could be looked at in this way, that the president is just honoring, these chiefs who fought for the rights of the Ogoni people, considering the fact that there were even 9, but of course there were 4 chiefs specifically within the Ogoni 9 that were executed in 1995. However, people who look at it critically might also be of the opinion that the president's decision to confer this posthumous honors on the Ogoni 4 is just a way of patting the Ogoni people on the back and creating a soft landing for the reopening of exploration in the in Ogoni land, particularly in the Niger Delta. And it might not really sit well with a lot of people, but of course, it is important that the Ogoni people welcome these awards. The governor of Rivers State was there, and of course, a certain son of the Ogoni people in person of Professor Baridam was also there, who is chairing the committee, the Ogoni Dialogue Committee. You know, they were all there, the chiefs were there, and it was quite a very memorable and historic event for the Ogoni people. But I think beyond just honoring and conferring honors on these chiefs who had lost their lives in the fight for the Ogoni people, it's important that while these explorations resume, the issues that these 9 people died for in the first place are addressed to the root causes in terms of environmental degradation, in terms of ensuring that the people of Ogoni land benefit from, like you mentioned, the golden egg that their land is laying for the federal government and for Nigerians as a whole. It's important to address those issues because if no matter how dirty a person is and you apply makeup on them, eventually that dirt from inside will resurface. So if the cleanup is not done and the exploration resumes, whether now, whether in the future, there will certainly be some sort of resurgence of the problem that we saw in the 90s that led to the execution of the Ogoni 9.
Now, for me, I think why I'm coming at it from this angle is I feel like because of the notion that was created around Ken Saro-Wiwa and the 8 others following the alleged involvement in the murder of the 4 Ogoni chiefs who yesterday received posthumous conferment, I would have been of the suggestion that more or less a pardon should have been issued to clear, because up until now, no one has cleared Ken Saro-Wiwa of late blessed memory and the 8 others of their involvement in the death of these 4 Ogoni chiefs who were gruesomely murdered on, I think, about May 21 in 1994, up until that secret military tribunal convicted Ken Saro-Wiwa of the alleged involvement in the death of the 4. So I felt yesterday would have been a way, the president is well in his rights to give a presidential pardon to Ken Saro-Wiwa and the 8 others, because the families of Ken Saro-Wiwa and the 8 others up until today feel that there was some sort of injustice done to them. There's been no tribunal following the execution.
And with the conferment of these honors on the chiefs, it almost certainly solidifies the conviction that was done in 1995 of the Ogoni 9.
So that's where I was driving at first. I feel like it should have been part of the dialogue, so that the families of the Ogoni 9 will feel more or less part of the story. Because Ken Saro-Wiwa was, in his activism, fighting for Ogoni people in entirety, saying since 1950s, this has been the injustice done to our community. They specifically wanted to stop Shell from drilling and exploring oil at that point. Up until the early 2000s, this debates on no cleanup exercise. Now there's going to be a
reopening or restart of the
oil production. But for yesterday, I think the technicality there was when the National Security Advisor, who we'll take a listen to shortly, talked about the due diligence that will be done to ensure that this injustice does not continue. There's also been a report submitted. I'm glad that the River State governor was reinstated before this. So it would bring some sort of confidence that there is the political will to ensure that the right thing is done.
Well, in a moment, let's take a look at how it panned out yesterday at the presidential villa with President Bola Tinubu welcoming the National Security Advisor and the River State governor, as well as the chairman of the Ogoni Dialogue Committee. Let's take a listen and we'll come back to the discussion here in the studio.
I urge the Ogoni people across the clans, communities, and generations to close ranks. Put this dark chapter behind us and move forward as a united community with single voice reconciliation. It's not an erasure of history. It is the commitment to write the next chapter together with joy. I'm encouraged by the overwhelming consensus of the Ogoni communities to welcome the resumption of oil production under new equitable terms, resourceful commitment. Government will deploy every resource to support the Ogoni people in this march towards shared prosperity.
What are the key findings of our consultation? The consultation revealed an unmistakable, overwhelming consensus of our people's readiness for the resumption of responsible oil production in Ogoni. They view renewed activity not as a return to the injustice of the past, but as an opportunity to reset relationships, accelerate remediations, and unlock economic inclusions.
I'm also aware that the CFO for the establishment of the industrial park has already been issued. I believe very soon work will commence on that. We're also aware of the issue of employment, which is still also being treated. With all this, I believe that the Ogoni people, myself standing as a governor, we will work together to make sure that this impulse that have existed for many years will be resolved finally.
Permit me, sir, to summarize 4 key takeaways from the report. First, the Ogoni people, while not forgetting past injustices, have reached a point of collective readiness to see the responsible resumption of oil production in Ogoni land, anchored on fairness, equity, environmental responsibility, and direct community benefit. Secondly, the Ogoni people are not merely asking for tokenism, but for structured participation through equity, development, funds, employment, and institutional safeguards. Furthermore, Your Excellency, there is all-round appreciation for ongoing confidence-building measures.
Well, the meeting there yesterday with leaders of Ogoni land and the governor of Rivers State, the national security advisor, and of course the chairman of the Ogoni Dialogue Committee with President Bola Tinubu, as moves have been made to resolve the conflict in Ogoni land and reopen exploration of the oil fields in the land. Quite a very historic event yesterday, I must say, Bito.
Now, I'll borrow some words from part of the comments of all those who just spoke, starting with Professor Baradam. Professor Baradam mentioned the catchphrase, responsive exploration.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be an exploration that would now be seen to be responsible. Are the people of the community going to get the due accruements as enshrined in the Petroleum Industry Act, apart from the derivation fund which oil producing communities are supposed to get? I know restorative and repatriative justice are top on those agendas, but the damage that has been done in over decades since the exploration, what level of investments will be done to, more or less, would I say compensate? Compensate is a very small word in terms of what is needed.
Well, but I hear that the federal government is pledging resources, of course, for the cleanup and shared prosperity of the golden egg coming out of Ogoni.
It's not as easy as that, Chijoke, because when livelihoods are lost,
they spoke about employment.
The president,
the governor spoke about employment, ensuring
industrial park.
Exactly.
But the challenge I have is some generations are falling into poverty because of this de-enfranchisement in a way. So take, for instance, some great grandfathers who had rich agricultural lands in the family's history, who could not pass this on to several generations, who have lost out. Now you barely have a lot of persons that would benefit from this. So if you do industrial parks now, you're talking about local content. The persons who are going to be employed probably won't get the top jobs. You know how the oil fields are structured, they probably get
menial jobs,
the gatesman. This, as much as you want local content and employment, it might not. I'm not saying it's a bad step in the right direction. All I'm saying is the level of damage that has been done, there needs to be more or less is reasonable or quantifiable investment in that.
But I think there has to be a starting point of anything. You cannot expect that an oil exploration being done in Ogoni land will pick up individuals who are not qualified for the job or who are not qualified
Exactly.
for certain technical aspects of oil exploration, mainly because they are from Ogoni land or from River State, and hand them over these jobs. Certainly the employment will be done on know-how basis. They are going to be done on the level of technicality. They're going to be done on the level of maybe educational qualification, on the level of exposure and all of that. So even when we complain about menial jobs most likely being handed out to Ogoni people, especially the younger demographic, now I'm talking about young people who are going to be employed when these explorations start. Yes, local content is expected. Local content should be encouraged, but should not be put over and at the detriment of professionalism, and at the detriment of ensuring seamless output and delivery of some of these explorations. So, but like I said earlier, there has to be a starting point. Let them start with the menial jobs. Let them start with the jobs that might not really be, that might not really look enticing in such nature. But eventually, when there is investment in education, when there is attention being paid to ensuring that these individuals who are supposed to be benefiting from the local content go to schools, when they go to specific schools that are meant to help them understand the oil and gas industry and also be part and parcel of the exploration done in Ogoni land, then we can start talking about handing them high-end jobs within perhaps the oil and gas sector in the country as it regards as it pertains to the exploration in Ogoni land. But one step at a time, baby steps. Eventually, this is a step in the right direction. The Ogoni people, I believe, are more than overjoyed by this news, the conferment of the posthumous honors on the four chiefs, and we hope that some, maybe before the administration of President Bola Tinubu elapses, there might be some sort of vindication of Ken Saro-Wiwa and the other 8 people who were accused and sentenced and executed in 1995. At the end of the day, it's about healing, it's about restoration, it's about ensuring that the dignity of those who lost their lives, whether the Ogoni 9 or the Ogoni 4 chiefs who are now being honored, experience, even in death, some sort of respect and honor from Nigeria itself. And when that is done, I think that the people of Ogoni would sheath their swords and put behind all of the troubling years that they have had from the 1950s up until now. So this is quite a very huge project, a very huge task, and one step at a time. The president has conferred the honors. He has pledged to support in monetary terms the cleanup of Ogoni land and also the exploration and local content as well. So one step at a time, we'll take it, and the Ogoni people should be patient with Nigeria, while Nigeria and the federal government also stays patient with the Ogoni people.
Credit to President Bola Tinubu, because I think he's been very strategic in restarting oil production, because he's always harped on the need that Nigeria does not need dead assets.
Yeah.
And I think strategically, what I'm just looking to happen is that as much as presidential pardons have been granted to Ken Saro-Wiwa and others, it's on the families. That's why I was starting on the families who might not be able to benefit the most from this. I think there should be priorities in those families, the Ogoni 9 and the Ogoni 4, who would, beyond the presidential pardons and these honors, feel at least some sort of recognition. Because I bet you a lot of people still live with this post-military industrial complex, because those executions were done under a military regime.
Yeah.
The later General Sani Abacha's regime. So now to have a democratically elected leader like President Bola Tinubu, who since his Nadeko days had seemed to be fighting for the misgivings of the military dictatorship, taking this part, it is very much welcomed.
Yeah.
One thing I would like to charge the River State governor in this stead, I heard he mentioned the industrial parks and jobs to be created. For me, personal experience, I had the benefit of visiting most of these oil exploring communities where I did weeks of field work whilst I was doing my first degree, which was in marine geology. I would like to hear that so and so number of health centers would be built, schools, because Chijoke, I bet you when you visit these communities, you have to journey via both through the riverine areas. Getting medical access for people who dwell there, and even education is very, very, very poor.
Yeah.
Talking about the quality of life, the water, because of the level of exploration, they don't get water. If you see the water they drink, quite very challenging. So I believe those things should be prioritized so that when people can look beyond, oh, these jobs are given out, the impact that would hit those communities across board in terms of access to health services, access to education, access to electricity and pipe-borne water, which are basic amenities, can be seen to be felt at the restart of this oil exploration.
All right, I hear that we have Mr. Ben Agunloye on the line, a public affairs analyst and also a regular here on the program. A very good morning to you, Mr. Ben. Thank you so much for
Good
availing
morning.
yourself for the discussion.
Good morning.
You're welcome, sir. We can hear you. Thanks for joining us. You just met us right on time before we change our subject of discourse. We've been talking about the ceremony at the villa yesterday where the president conferred national honors on the Ogoni 4 shortly after pardons were given to the Ogoni 9 in June. Would like your takes on this because my colleague and I had been debating on how this reopening of oil production would not go back into the past misgivings of exploring a community and the community not benefiting from the golden egg they're laying. Let's get your take, sir.
Well, basically, I think it is good to make peace. It is good to bring everybody on the table. Now, of course, going back into oil exploration, I think there are rules of engagement, and those rules should be kept true. And like I would always say, there are need for development in the environment. We should go away from the habit of throwing money at issues, but dealing with the issues themselves. If it is road, we need to make it navigable. If it is housing or flood, we need to build the embankments. If it is spillage, we need to do the cleaning and be sure that the cleanings are done. You shouldn't just be telling us the figures of how much has been budgeted or how much has been spent, but we need to see exactly what has been done. If it is the primary health care, you need to have it in place. The school system has got to be in place, and you need all the other infrastructure. You shouldn't be living in the midst of water and you can't get water to drink. So the water purification system and the potable water supply for people in those environments should be put in place. So to a large extent, it is good to make peace. It is good to return to production, but it is much more appropriate that every infrastructure and special need of the people in that environment, based on their peculiarities, are given the right attention as against putting money in the pockets of some individuals. So there should be real activity, not propaganda. That's my take.
Now, Mr. Ben, in relation to this particular matter, still with the oil and gas sector and in terms of NNPCL's frontier explorations, we hear that the NNPCL had received 318.05 billion naira between January and August of 2025 for frontier oil exploration, for frontier oil explorations. Now, these oil explorations are supposed to be in underexplored basins including Anambra, Bida, Dahomey, Sokoto, Chad, and Benue. But not a single mention was made of Ogoni land. Do you care to shed more light on this? And why do you think Ogoni land was left out of this entire figure, over 300 billion naira, considering the fact that the federal government is about to reopen exploration there?
No, basically, when you are looking at new fields, because when you talk about frontier, they are underexplored environment. That's what the statement says. Anywhere on the shoreline, in Ogoni, in Ijo, in Akwa Ibom, you cannot say they are underexplored. Those ones are already, exploration are going on there. The international oil companies are in those places. And so if you are looking at it, I don't think that you will say you will put a professor in the same class with a secondary school student and say they are both education less developed. No. Do you understand that? So if you are looking at research or getting a professor to do something, what process you need to do is not putting him in class with students that are writing jam. So the Ogoni land and the entire coast have been explored forever. So as a matter of fact, if you are looking at new or underexplored, I don't think they come in that category. So, and like I said, the issue of what money is thrown at things is nothing.
Yeah.
What are the actual activities that is involved? And that's what should be done. So if you are looking at recommissioning or decommissioning, those languages will apply on the coastland. But you can't say that in the Anambra Basin or in the Shad Basin, because nothing has been commissioned previously, and so you are looking at new opportunities. But in Ogoni land, we already know that these things are here.
But some people are of the opinion that perhaps this is just a wild goose chase in terms of exploring oil in places that for quite a number of years monies have been dumped into, and there has not been a single drop in terms of crude oil output from these locations. Do you subscribe to this line of thoughts, this entire thing being a wild goose chase?
Well, I won't see it as a wild goose chase. For more than 50 years, Egypt has been pursuing oil. And I'm not sure that up till now they have food, even though they live with neighbors like Sudan, like Algeria, like Libya, like the Arab nations across the Mediterranean. All of them have oil. So it is not wrong for Egypt for a nation, for instance, to continue to explore. But while they are exploring, which they did not find, I'm sure that they have their refineries working and they are doing great. So in the same way, there is that tendency for those things to be there. So it's not about whether we are doing it, it should be how we are doing it. Are we engaging the right technology? Are we engaging the right people? Then do we have the political will to actually do what we are talking about doing? Because I remember talking about dredging the Niger. There was a president who was opposed to it, and he was here for 8 years. And there are people also in NNPCL who do not see any reason why you should look for oil anywhere apart from the coastland where you already have it. So to a large extent, I think it is, for me, checking for new things, checking for new opportunities is not a wide good shape. But ensuring, like we would always say, that the right process and the right technology are engaged. That's what people should focus on. Are due diligence being done? Or people are just diverting the money and using that as a means to steal, as a means for corruption? But if it is a technical input, the technical process is well defined. And then you have engaged the right technology, which is being used everywhere in the modern technique and other surveys. Then you will be able to come up with to say, okay, we are making progress or we have not made progress. But not that budget is done, money is spent, and there is no activity or report on ground to show that things are done. And that you're not giving the job to people who believe it cannot be done. I think that's one of the biggest crimes. When you put someone who believes this project should not happen in charge of the project, you will always find a reason why the project should never happen.
Now, Mr. Ben, I'd like to come in on the point you raised as it concerns due diligence. And it's with the loopholes when it concerns funds not being remitted to the Federation account. Now, the FACT subcommittee is looking to probe spendings on new frontiers in this oil exploration. But as it stands, I also saw another report from the budget office that Nigeria loses at least 60% of oil income. And this is owing to the fact that national oil firms pay zero dividends to the Federation account. How can we ensure due compliance with what you mentioned as the rules of engagement as it concerns this, because a lot of Nigerians are losing public trust in probes being able to provide any suitable outcomes that would either lead to prosecutions or ensure that these monies are accounted for. Because I cannot imagine that profits are coming in the tunes of over trillions, but yet these national oil firms find it difficult to pay their dividends.
It's an opaque industry. That's the way they made it to be. And so they need to bring in some more form of transparency. That we would always say, if you ask today, I'm not sure you will get an immediate answer from any official source. How many barrels do we export on a daily basis? Even when you come to consumption at the downstream, we also do not have the right information. There are minimal conjectures. So there needs to be a process in place where you actually can say, okay, in these different OPL and in these different agreements, that the International Oil Company, for instance, the IOC agreement, what were the terms? What were the conditions? I think if it's not even made known to the public, it should be known to perhaps the Ministry of Finance Incorporated and to the National Assembly, and should be available for people who can ask, who want to ask questions or need information for them, even for some occasional research. But the reality is that to get any information in that sector, it's like breaking a rock with your fork, not even with an axe.
Now, Mr.
Like
Ben,
breaking a rock with your fork.
Mr. Ben, we have just about 3 minutes to wrap up the discussion on Morning Express this morning. However, there is one matter of discourse I would want you to briefly speak on before we let you go. It is concerning President Bola Tinubu's declaration of support for the 1999 Constitution review currently going on. The president had termed it a golden opportunity that would help strengthen Nigeria's democracy, while the committee is also emphasizing the need for devolution of powers in the country. How do you react to this situation, and what do you think of the Constitution review? Is it timely? Is it apt? Is it necessary for Nigeria to grow?
Absolutely, it's timely. We need to have a review of the Constitution, and that is always necessary because no single constitution at the point of enactment will meet all the needs of the people. We've had a constitution now for more than 20 years, and a lot of things have changed. A lot of understandings have come in. So reviewing it is important. And when we come to devolution of power, I don't think that I have anything against that. We need to devolve power and we should design it. But if we look at it more obviously, I don't think rather than thinking of region and creation of state, we should strengthen the local government. If possible, local government should be the federating unit of the nation, not even the state, and nobody should be thinking about regions as far as I'm concerned. Because the regional structures are not in place. You will need to now start constructing them. And I can tell you that there are some states who felt left out in the region where they are. So if you now decide to put them into that region and you are spending money into the regional structure, it will be a waste. So we should leave the local government the way they are and possibly put more strength, more power, more responsibility, and more resources at the local government level. And let's have a process that is transparent enough that people can challenge the authority right at their local government level. And then we can see better development.
All right, Mr. Ben, we thank you very much for joining in to lend your thoughts on the crucial issues in the news this morning. We appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Well, this is where we wrap up on our newspaper review segment. Chijoke will take us through our next conversation lined up for the top of the hour.
Well, of course, after the break, we hope to come back here in the studio with our guests joining virtually once again to touch on more national issues. Do well to stay with us.